It's become a routine on this channel where I tackle a full game challenge for 1000 Year Door and then do a follow-up video where I apply the same rules to the Pit of 100 trials. I first did it with the no action commands challenge and the partners only challenge, and in both of those cases I found that the Pit of 100 trials was slightly easier than the endgame bosses. And, well, let's just say that I did not encounter that problem this time. So, just to recap, the challenge that I'm going to be applying to the Pit of 100 trials today is the Level 0 challenge. It's a harder version of a no experience run where you're not allowed to level up at all and you're not allowed to use any badge power at all. I did actually have the Peekaboo badge equipped for the full game run and will for this Pit of 100 trials portion too, but the reason for this is that it helps viewers keep track of where my enemy health is when I'm editing around. It doesn't give me any other advantage in battle other than seeing the enemy health, and I didn't see anybody in the comments on the last video disagreeing and saying that this badge broke the rules, so I'm gonna keep rolling with it. Normally, the way that somebody would do this challenge on an unmodified copy of the game would be to simply choose badge power on every single level up, but only use 3 or use none at all depending on if you're trying level 1 or level 0. But to make it more legit feeling for the sake of content, I decided to use an action replay code that prevents Mario's star points counter from ever increasing above 0. This prevented me from leveling past level 1 in the last video, and it will continue to keep me there for this entire video. This actually ends up making the Pit of 100 trials substantially harder than if you just pretended to not level up. Normally as you play through the pit, you'll start to level up more and more as it goes on and get free heals every time you do. With my no star points code, I have to go from floor 1 all the way to 100 without any automatic heals whatsoever. Combining that with the other restrictions of doing a level 0 challenge made this pit run probably the hardest challenge I've done in 1000 Year Door to date. And one last thing before we get started. I used to not ask for subscribers at the beginning of the video because I really want my content to speak for itself rather than tell you that it's worth subscribing to, but the truth is that a lot of people, myself included on other people's channels, forget to subscribe even if they watch lots of videos and like them from said channel. So if that sounds somewhat like your relationship with the Mr. Bringles man, that's me, then make sure you subscribe because it makes a huge impact on my ability to keep making these videos for you guys. Now, let's get into the Level 0 Pit of 100 trials. As you might expect, and like I mention every time, the enemies in the first couple sets of floors aren't very difficult to deal with. Gloombas are the strongest enemies within the first 10, and they only have 7 health and 3 attack. Even with Mario's wimpy 10 health and his partner's wimpy unranked health, this damage would be a drop in the bucket if they ever got the chance to attack me. As always, I did my best to optimize my actions to kill the enemies in as few turns as possible while using as few resources as possible. First strikes go a long way towards making fights in the pit faster, especially when Mario doesn't have any badge attacks or much FP to use. Spin jump first strikes are usually my favorite to use since they get some extra damage without costing any FP, but later in the pit I started to find some utility in the Ultra Hammer first strike as well. The main thing that I learned right away is that unranked partners really don't hold up to a late game standard. Bobby and Yoshi are the strongest partners when they aren't ranked up, and they only clock in at 4 damage each. Mario has the Ultra Boots and Ultra Hammer, which at least let him do 6, but this is still a lot less than I'm used to because I normally use a lot of attack increasing badges. Overall though, these are just things to keep in mind going forward because I was able to blow through these first floors easily, and I only took a single point of damage the entire time from one missed super guard. So let's move along. These floors barely amp up the difficulty, but they do serve as a painful reminder of how slow of an experience this is going to be. Bobby can't even one-hit kill a Piter from Chapter 2, let alone any of the stronger enemies that are waiting on deeper floors. I used the most efficient combinations of moves that I could and superguarded as many attacks as possible. Eventually, I took enough damage that I wanted to heal it back off with a Sweet Treat. As with any Pit of 100 Trials challenge, we're going to be seeing a lot of Sweet Treat. It's a very resource-efficient way to heal, and in this case, it's actually my only way to heal because I forgot to mention that I brought an entire inventory full of 10 life shrooms for the pit. Okay, yes, I can technically use those as normal healing items too, but that would be such a waste, so we'll just say Sweet Treat and Sweet Feast are my only options for healing. Another big problem that pops up from using the no star points action replay code as opposed to just using a vanilla version of the game is my audience. And by that I mean my in-battle Paper Mario audience, not you guys that are watching this. You guys are unproblematic and based, but these little guys here are problematic and cringe. I Is cringe the opposite of based? Anyways, the audience mechanics in this game are needlessly complicated and surprisingly deep, which is par for the course with this game, but to dumb it down and make it really simple, let's just say that never leveling up and running away from a lot of fights like I did in the full game run has left my audience pretty small. Since I'm still level 1, the maximum amount of seats in the audience is only 50, but I pretty routinely start with about 15 people or so for any given battle. This makes star power recovery super slow and painful, requiring a bingo or 50 billion turns of appealing to heal it from 0 to full. This combined with the fact that I get no free heals just makes the action replay code version of this challenge so much harder than just leveling up and ignoring badge power. Anyways, like I already said, the first 20-ish floors of the pit are usually pretty lame, so this time I decided to spend the time talking about other aspects of the overall pit run, but things actually start to heat up as early as the next segment, so let's keep going on to that. The main thing I really have to watch out for here are bandits. If I let them steal a coin and escape, I'll have to redo the battle from the beginning. Right away, I decided to start trying to put the Ultra Hammer First Strike to good use, but I somehow managed to fuck up the action command, so it was just a weaker hammer for this particular attack. The wall of the stage falling here was actually super clutch because it took 1 health off the second Gloomba, allowing me to kill him with a single hammer attack after that. From there, I could blow up the Bob-omb and jump on the bandit to finish this fight in a pretty impressive 2 turns. I mean, it's impressive for this rule set, at least. The next fight was similar but with less enemies, and then after that I did this absolutely beautiful 1-turn fight. I first struck the Lakitu with the Ultra Hammer, killing him and igniting the 2 Bob-ombs behind him. I used Bobbery to finish the first Bob-omb, and then the stage wall happened to fall and kill the other Bob-omb. From there, I was able to kill the Lakitu with a jump, making this fight against 4 enemies doable in 1 turn with no FP. For some of the following floors, I began to leverage the power of the Ultra Hammer First Strike plus Earth Tremor combo. This could do 3 damage to every grounded enemy and then an additional 6 damage to everything else. Using that, I could delete these 4 boos easily, and then I ran the same play against these 4 Lakitus. And finally, these 4 Bob-ombs were made super efficient with an Ultra Hammer First Strike and a Super Guard. These fights didn't present much of a threat against Mario's life and happiness and well-being, but that was because of good strategizing and using my First Strike options well. As we go on though, I'm not going to be able to kill things nearly as fast. Things start off pretty tame here with a couple Dark Koopas. First striking them with a spin jump can almost one-shot them, and then of course knocking them over makes them completely harmless. Floor 32 has some Hyper Clefs on it, which are made super easy with an Ultra Hammer First Strike and an Earth Tremor. Since they only had 1 health left after the first strike, I just immediately failed the input so I didn't have to go through the entire attack to deal unnecessary damage. The next floor hit me with 4 Parabuzzies, which I could kill with an Earth Tremor, but I wanted to try and build some star power back up since there were no heals in my future. I swapped to Yoshi and slowly grinded away at killing them while super guarding as many of their attacks as I could. Next up were 4 Shady Koopas, which are pretty dangerous enemies to fight against when I have such little health and little damage output. Knocking them over would make them able to 2-hit kill my party and waste life shrooms if I missed those super guards, but using attacks that don't knock them over would take forever. I decided to use the star power I worked so hard for in the last fight to kill all of them with an art attack. The next few battles were a lot more of just plugging away and super guarding so that I could once again build some star power back up. I finally lost my first bit of FP for this whole pit run so far, and it wasn't even from using an attack. It ended up being from a Flower Fuzzy that I missed the super guard on. Showstopper made its first appearance so far against a couple Parabuzzies and Shady Koopas, and it worked super well since they're lower level enemies. And finally, on floor 39, I got the perfect combo against a couple Shady Koopas and a Dark Koopa. First striking with Ultra Hammer brought the front one to 3 and the back one to 5, which let Mario kill the back one with a jump and Yoshi kill the front with a ground pound. After that, the Dark Koopa is unsurprisingly a weak little bitch and goes down super easily. On floor 41, I encountered a mover. I decided that I wouldn't use any movers for this run, so any of them that I did find, I made sure to just move on from without skipping any extra floors. Still though, the mover gives you a freebie floor even if you don't pay, so it is worth mentioning in my opinion. Floor 42 hit me with 4 bulky Bob-ombs, which is a nice break from encounters that are actually threatening in any way. An Ultra Hammer First Strike already brings them to half health, and from there I can slowly pick them off before they ever get the chance to explode. The 3 lava bubbles on the next floor would have been possible to one turn with an Ultra Hammer First Strike plus Hammer plus Bobbery if I had remembered to bring Bobbery into the fight, but a Super Guard made it so that it didn't matter anyway. I first struck these 4 poison pokies with an Ultra Hammer and then was able to finish them off with an Earth Tremor, other than the fact that one of them had a Life Shroom, of course. Luckily though, Bobbery plus a Super Guard against his body part flinging attack, that sounds disgusting now that I'm saying it out loud, made this fight still somehow a one-turn kill even though there was a Life Shroom in the mix. I have no way of damaging spiky Parabuzzies with normal attacks, and I don't have attacking items, so I had to lean on Earth Tremor to take them out. These 4 Dark Paratroopers ended up providing a slow, grindy fight that I could spam stylish attacks to recover some of the star power I've been using for Earth Tremors in the past few floors. Alternating between jumping on different Koopas prevents them from ever attacking me, but it also takes forever, so I recovered quite a bit of star power. The last few floors of this section were pretty much just repeats of earlier encounters, so we'll just go ahead and gloss over them. All of these floors got really tight in terms of optimizing to beat enemies without taking a lot of damage, but it was still overall pretty reasonable. From here though, things take a turn for the worse. I chose not to grab the Strange Sack on floor 50 because there's an additional category on the 1000 Year Door Challenge wiki for beating the game and the pit without using the Strange Sack. If for some reason any of you are insane enough to still be following along with this challenge at home after the last video, then I would highly recommend grabbing the Strange Sack and going back to Rogueport and buying 10 more Life Shrooms. You would have to start the pit over from the beginning, but you would have 20 Life Shrooms, which gives you double the survivability because math is crazy. And in terms of money, that's absolutely not a problem for this challenge because you can just sell every single badge that you get throughout the game. Having twice as many Life Shrooms definitely makes it easier, but it doesn't make it easy by any means. Given that I am a bit of a gaming masochist and want to add stakes and difficulty and suffering for the sake of you guys, I didn't even open the chest and moved straight on to floor 51. Badge bandits always present a huge issue in any challenge where you can't do a lot of damage since, like the regular bandits, they'll escape and force you to have to refight them. I opened with a showstopper, but it only happened to affect the Ice Puff and not the bandits, so I decided to run away and start that attempt over. I swapped over to Yoshi and got a first strike with Ultra Hammer, which does some good damage to each bandit. Mario can finish the front one with a regular attack, and then I chipped the other one down with Yoshi. Since I'm stubborn, I tried to super guard the bandit and missed it, which knocked Mario down to peril. The Ice Puff then charged up for his Icy Wind, so I decided to appeal with Yoshi for some extra star power and then kill the last 2 enemies with an art attack. All of that effort went into a single encounter against mid-tier pit enemies. That's how you know that this is already getting absolutely out of hand. Floor 52 had 4 Ice Puffs on it and they're super susceptible to Showstopper, so I went right ahead and stopped they show. I was trying to first strike this Dark Boo with a spin jump since it one-shots him, but the game denied me on the first try, so I ran away and actually hit it on my second try. From there, I gulped and jumped on the rear Dark Boo to get him out of the picture, and that left just a Badge Bandit that I could finish on the next turn with regular attacks. Keeping Mario in peril for a bit did a lot to bring my star power back up, but after a few hearts dropped from that battle, I used them to heal him back up a little bit. Floor 54 gave me a nice break, being easy to kill with an Ultra Hammer and Earth Tremor, and then floor 55 was also easy because these 4 Moonclefs can be killed by a single Earth Tremor. The next 4 floors all ended up being repeats of the first 4 in this section, but I dealt with them using less special moves and more super guards in order to build my star power back up. Once again, I'll reiterate, the star power thing would be much less of an issue if you played this challenge without the action replay code, since you get free heals and have a larger audience, but I already chose to die on this hill long ago. Ultimately though, I made it to floor 60 just fine, and all of my Life Shrooms were still intact. Gets very real very quickly starting right now. 2 Dark Lakitus and a Dark Craw have so much health and potential attack power that they are essentially a boss fight. Pretty much every fight from here on out is gonna be like this. And the difference between these fights and a boss fight within the normal story is that in this case, I do have to be conscious of how much star power I use and have to enter with less than full and leave with as much as I can for the next fight. If I was just doing a regular boss fight, I'd be able to heal up before and after and not worry about it, but I do not have that luxury here. I decided to open with a Showstopper, which luckily killed the front front Dark Lakitu and the Dark Craw. The Dark Lakitu that was left spawned a blue Spiny, but I was able to finish the Lakitu himself and recover some star power while I chipped away and super guarded the Spiny. And during this grind, I made sure to use a sweet treat so I could fully heal my health and FP. The 4 dry bones on the next floor were less threatening because they're pretty much the last enemy in the pit that I can still kill with the Ultra Hammer First Strike plus Earth Tremor combo. At this point, I was also making sure to sneak in appeals on freebie turns whenever I could, just because every little bit of star power counts in a situation like this. The 2 Dark Wizards and the Dark Craw on the next floor are another strong combo of enemies, but I was able to luckily kill all of them with a Showstopper. This popped the life shroom that the front one was carrying, but after some shenanigans with his illusion move, stage hazards, and spamming attacks, I killed him just fine. He actually dropped his life shroom from this fight, but since I still had all 10 of the ones I brought, I couldn't bring this extra one with me. I decided to eat the extra one and heal up Vivian, who was down 5 health, because otherwise it was gonna go to waste anyway. We don't promote wasting food here on the Bringle channel. Luckily, these 4 Frost Piranhas are more enemies that are super weak to Showstopper, so they didn't provide much of a threat either. The 3 Dark Craws on the next floor would be another monumental threat if not for the fact that they're really easy to time the super guards for. This is another case where I decided to just spam regular attacks with stylish commands to build up some star power again, although I did take a couple hits that healed off with a sweet treat. Floor 66 had another pair of Dark Lakitus with a little Dark Craw bodyguard, but this time I hit the lottery and all of them died to a single Showstopper. 67 just had a Dry Bones and a Dark Craw, and after making sure to use Bobry to actually kill the Dry Bones instead of just knocking him down, I beat the Dark Craw to death with my slightly underwhelming attacks. Floor 68 was another jackpot where I managed to kill everything with Showstopper, and then finally on the funny floor I encountered another 4-pack of Frost Piranhas. I decided to take them out without using Showstopper this time for star power conservation purposes, of course, and I got the sexy ass stage fall that brought the Piranhas to Ultra Hammer range, which let me take out 2 of them on the first turn. After that, I somehow got decalibrated or something and missed both the super guards on the Frost Piranhas, which led to Bobry taking quite a bit of damage. Still though, he didn't die, so I made it this far with all 10 life shrooms intact, which I'd say is pretty insane. Right off the bat, I'm hit with a Wizard and 2 Chain Chomps. The Ultra Hammer First Strike is really good against Chain Chomps since it pierces defense on the AoE hits, you like that gamer term there, but unfortunately Wizards don't actually get knocked back by the Ultra Hammer move. I went ahead and used a Showstopper which took out the Wizard and first Chain Chomp. From there, I decided to just Super Guard and Ultra Hammer the Chain Chomp to death while leveraging Danger Bobry appeals for extra star points. We're basically to the point where I'd be an idiot not to try Showstopper on every floor, so I did just that against these 2 Dark Coup Patrols and Wizard. It only managed to pick off the front Coup Patrol, which sucks because these things have so much health. I Super Guarded a couple of their attacks and double dipped Showstoppers for the first time in this pit run. It managed to pick off the other Dark Coup Patrol, which overall is worth it in my book. The Wizard gave himself the huge status, so I decided to just finish him off with regular attacks. Unfortunately though, he healed on the turn that Bobry was made invisible by the audience, and then the next turn he struck Bobry down with lightning. Bobry ate my first life shroom of this run, which sucks because I was beginning to get a false sense of security that I'd managed to make it to at least the 80s with all of my life shrooms. On floor 73, Showstopper got 4 out of 5 Phantom Embers, so I took the next turn to use a sweet treat before Bobry finished off the last one. I didn't have enough star power for a Showstopper on 74, so I used the first turn to appeal and spin jump the Swoopula to take out a threat while saving up for one. And luckily, like seriously, thank God, the Showstopper that I used on the next turn took out both Dark Coup Patrols. Getting through the health and defense of Dark Coup Patrols with level 0 characters would take several turns per Coup Patrol, so I did not want to deal with that. Floor 75 had 4 Chain Chomps on it, which I was able to deal huge damage to with an Ultra Hammer First Strike, and then my first actual use of the Ultra Hammer move. I Super Guarded all but one of their attacks, which finished off 2 of the Chain Chomps, and then from there I shuffled around Bobry and Mario to keep them both alive and earned as much star power back from the danger status as I could. I flipped the proverbial coin on floor 76 to see if it was going to be super easy or super painful, and it landed on Tails. Floor 77 gave me another mover, which once again I'm not allowed to actually use, but I will always take those free floors. Next, I got pitted against a few Phantom Embers and a Wizard. I had barely any star power left to my name and not exactly a lot of health to go around. All I could do was use some normal attacks and try my best to super guard and stay afloat. I did well overall, but the wizard did strike Mario down, consuming my second life shroom. Even though he buffed his defense for a bit, I was able to set him on fire with Vivian to deal some chip damage, and ultimately he went down. The last challenge this set of floors had in store for me was floor 79 with 4 swoopulas. A spin jump first strike killed the front one super easily, but unfortunately I didn't have enough star power for a showstopper, and I didn't have enough FP to pay for any spin jumps. I decided to use a sweet treat to heal Bobbery back up and restore my FP, and then I went to work super guarding the swoopulas as best I can. This timing is really tricky to get down, but since I tend to learn my super guards by feel and audio cues more than visual cues, I've actually found myself getting more and more consistent at this one as time goes on. After a couple more spin jumps, I was down to just 1 swoopula, and he managed to pop my 3rd life shroom with an unfortunate missed super guard. After that though, I was able to clean him up and move on to the next section with my pockets just a little bit lighter. A mover spawned on the reward floor, which is so upsetting because I know that I could avoid so much pain by going straight to floor 85, and that it technically wouldn't even be against the rules of level 0, but I have a duty to put myself through as much Paper Mario pain as possible for the people. On floor 81, I was up against 4 Spunnias, which have just the right amount of horsepower to ruin anybody's day, but luckily I'm not just anybody. I'm the motherfucking Pringles man with a B. I decided to kill them with bombs and hammers so I could hopefully claw back some star power, and along the way I managed to super guard every single one of their attacks. Floor 82 had a couple dark bristles on it, but before I even got into the fight, I wanted to avoid getting first struck by him. These guys spin at you pretty relentlessly, and if you make contact with them, then they'll get a first strike on you. However, if you let them chase you around for what feels like forever, like seriously, I think it's like 30 seconds or so, eventually the enemy will get bored for a moment and you can encounter him neutrally. I had enough star power for a showstopper, but I don't like to play with chance whenever there's a better option, so I decided to use Earth Tremor and Super Guards instead. For some reason, I guess I got decalibrated again or whatever and missed 2 Super Guards in a row against these guys, causing Bobbery to eat my 4th life shroom. Other than that though, it went pretty much according to plan. Floor 83 was another one that I wanted to kill without using any star power, so I took out the front Arantula with my first strike and a couple regular attacks, and then went to timing my little B button presses while chipping away at them. I mention this in every pit challenge, but it's so lucky that all of the enemies on this set of floors are easy to super guard, because otherwise this area would become an absolute graveyard for pit challenges. I managed to get through this particular fight not only without using a life shroom, but actually without taking any damage at all. On floor 84, I decided to bring Showstopper back out, and it was able to kill a whopping 1 of the piranha plants. So I decided to pull back from the coin flip strats and go for consistent damage and super guards instead. Earth Tremor is once again a fantastic option against the Dark Bristle and puts the piranha plant in kill range for Bobbery. After that, a final super guard kills the Dark Bristle. Floor 85 had a value pack of Spunnias, a buy 4 get 1 free sort of situation, so I used a Showstopper and only managed to kill the freebie one. After that, I went back to my tried and true B button spam and slowly worked my way through them like I did on floor 81. Floor 86 was the same as the last one, except they stopped running the buy 4 get 1 free promo. Since Showstopper hasn't proven to be very effective against them so far, I just decided to stick to my bread and butter. Unfortunately though, my huge throbbing hubris got the best of me and I finally managed to fumble my super guards pretty bad. I got hit by 3 out of 4 of them, which popped my 5th life shroom. I healed back up with a sweet treat and plugged myself back into the game so I wouldn't mess up again. When the whole fight was said and done, I had more star power than I've had in a long time, and Bobbery was almost full on health for the first time in a while. Floor 87 was another pair of dark bristles, and I dealt with them with an Earth Tremor and some super guards like usual. I did take a hit from one of them, but I healed it back up with Sweet Treat. Floor 88 had 2 Arantulas and another dark bristle, and I was able to kill the front Arantula with a first strike, bomb, and Earth Tremor. From there, the other Arantula went down to some normal attacks, and then the dark bristle went down to some super guards. The final obstacle of this set of floors was 4 Piranha Plant buddies in arms. I first struck them with an Ultra Hammer, hit them with a bomb, and then used a paid Ultra Hammer which killed the front one and did some good spread damage. I missed one of the super guards, so I healed back up with a Sweet Treat, but on the next turn I missed even more super guards, so Bobbery popped my 6th life shroom. I'm honestly not sure why I missed so many Piranha Plant super guards. I'd say that usually it's one of the ones I'm most consistent at, but apparently the day I was playing this, it just wasn't clicking for some reason. I decided to leave Bobbery in peril for an extra turn to farm some more star power, and then I healed him back up with a Sweet Treat for the even more threatening floors coming up. Overall, these floors weren't too bad, I guess, but I used a lot more life shrooms than I wanted to. As per usual with pit challenges, super guarding is absolutely crucial the further you get into it to survive. If you don't straight up have a 75% or higher success rate of super guards on these floors, you're pretty much done for. I know there's a lot of people that watch these videos that get tired of super guarding being such a prominent part of these challenge runs, but the truth is that every single challenge run I've done so far where I've allowed them, they've actually been required to be able to beat the game. I'm not necessarily opposed to banning them for certain rule sets, and I do actually have some challenges planned for the future where they aren't allowed. I agree that I don't like runs where super guards get in the way of strategy, but the truth is that most of the time, these two things go hand in hand. It's unrealistic to expect 100% super guard consistency from a human, so it's still very important to optimize and strategize the best way to kill every enemy so you don't have to super guard as many attacks. I can see why the strategy heavy runs like no action commands or minimum turns are more interesting to viewers in certain ways, but in the moment when I'm playing them, I find the extra layer of execution makes them much more suspenseful, and honestly, I'm curious if that comes across for you guys when you watch them. Anyways, that's enough rambling for now. Let's move on to floors 91 to 99, or as I lovingly like to call them, Hell. On floor 91, I encountered 5 elite wizards, which would be more difficult than pretty much every boss in the game if not for the fact that I had enough star power to use a supernova. I mashed A over and over and completely wiped them off the face of the earth. Without supernova, I'd have to gamble on using showstopper, and the odds aren't very good against these guys. Without any special moves, all I can do is damage them from one at a time with ultra hammers or use gulps with Yoshi, so it felt very worth it to spend even that massive 6 star power on this fight. Floor 92 gave me one final glimpse into what could have been by giving me another mover. Once again, I will gladly welcome the free floor, but 5 free floors would be even better. Oh well though, on to floor 93. 2 Bobulks and an elite wizard isn't the worst thing to deal with, since Bobulks are still easy to kill under level 0 conditions before they explode. I appealed a couple times on the first turn to gain enough star power to use Earth Tremor on the second turn. That finished off the front Bobulk, and then I was able to use a gulp to finish the second and knock the elite wizard down to 3. I still haven't figured out which legal Nintendo hardware setting causes the game to run at half speed when several enemies are invisible, so I dealt with a fun laggy turn before his buff wore off. From there, I kind of just spammed the illusions with attacks and tried to land hammers on them as much as possible to wear down his last little bit of health. As long as I manage to reveal him, he spends his next turn recasting the illusion, so he doesn't actually get as many attacks here as you'd think. On floor 94, I was put up against a Swampire and 2 Poison Puffs. I decided to finish off the Swampire on the first turn since a couple spin jumps and Yoshi were enough to do the deed, and then both Poison Puffs charged up. I went for a showstopper to see if I could stop both of them from poison attacking me, since it's a one-hit kill against both my characters and it's hard to superguard. It ended up killing one of them, and then I managed to superguard the charged up poison attack. After that, finishing him up was no problem. I was really scared of floor 95 because it has a 1 in 3 chance to spawn with 5 elite wizards again, and I absolutely did not have enough star power to use a supernova this time. It ended up being 2 elite wizards and a Swampire, which is still difficult but not nearly as brutal. I tried a showstopper of course and only managed to grab the kill on the Swampire. After that, the elite wizard tickled Mario to death, eating my 7th life shroom. I luckily managed to get the next super guard and then used an earth tremor to take a bunch of health from both wizards. The front wizard turned himself dodgy, but I decided to go for the gulp gambit and hit it, killing the front one and leaving the back one with only a single point of health after Mario's attack. From there, he used the illusion move, and I managed to weed out the correct one with Yoshi so I could finish him off with one final hammer. Floor 96 had 2 Poison Puffs, a Swampire, and an Amazy Daisy. There was no hope that I'd be able to kill the Amazy Daisy with regular damage, so all I could do was appeal, use Showstopper, and hope that it died or ran away. Showstopper surprisingly only worked on the Amazy Daisy, and then I was left to superguard everything else. The next turn, I picked off the front Poison Puff, kept Yoshi alive with a superguard against the Swampire, but then this stupid bastard Poison Puff used his Thunder Rage and killed Yoshi with an unblockable 5 damage. That means I have only 2 life shrooms left for the next few floors and Bonetail. After that unfortunate Thunder Rage though, I kept it together and finished the rest of the fight without losing any more of my life shrooms. Floor 97 had 3 Bobulks and another Amazy Daisy, and I made sure to get a very helpful Ultra Hammer first strike. Like last fight, I was pretty much banking on the Amazy Daisy running away, so I decided to use a sweet treat to heal some FP so I could use gulps to kill the Bobulks. sucks. In hindsight, I probably should have just used an Earth Tremor here, but at the end of the day, I ended up with a fully healed Yoshi and didn't take any damage during this fight anyways. Floor 98 hit me with a Swampire and 2 Poison Puffs, and once again, I decided to pick off the Swampire on the first turn instead of trying a low odds Showstopper. One of the Puffs used a Dizzy Dial on me because apparently these guys are filthy item spammers on this playthrough, but I decided to just keep attacking through the Dizzy and hoped to get lucky. I did manage to hit both attacks on the first turn, but missed both times on the second turn. The front Puff charged up for a Poison Cloud with just 4 health left, so I used Earth Tremor to pick him off before he could unleash it. After that, Mario got slapped down to 2 health, so I put in Bobbery and Sweet Treated in preparation for the upcoming Bonetail fight. I was planning on going in with Bobbery and wanted him to be fully healed. Once that was done, I finished off the Poison Puff. Floor 99 once again has a chance to spawn with 5 Elite Wizards, but fortune smiled on me one last time and it was a single Elite Wizard with 2 Poison Puffs instead. I first entered with Bobbery, but then decided that Yoshi would be better, so I ran away and restarted the fight. I tried a Showstopper, hoping for a lucky break on the last floor, but only managed to grab the kill on the middle Puff with a Thunder Rage, which still isn't that bad, honestly. The Wizard gave himself the huge status, and the Poison Puff charged up for a Poison Cloud. All I could do was chip away some damage at the Wizard and hope for the best. Miraculously, I super guarded both his weird Tickle attack and the Poison Cloud, which were threatening to take my last 2 life shrooms. A jump, ground pound, and damage from the stage were able to finish the Poison Puff off, and all that remained was the Elite Wizard with 3 health. Once again, I went into a grindy cycle of weeding out the real one and dealing single points of damage at a time. It took a while, but allowed me to build up a tiny bit more star power to fight Bonetail with. Eventually, the Elite Wizard went down, and that put 99 out of 100 floors behind me. And so, we all know what comes next. This guy. This f***ing guy. In most playthroughs of Thousand Year Door, I'd say Bonetail is pretty similar difficulty to Gloomtail. Yeah, Bonetail has functionally 3 times as much health, but his damage is slightly lower due to not having the Ground Shake attack or Mega Breath. Usually you'd be stronger after doing the entire pit to the point where that gap in health between the two doesn't matter very much, but in the case of this challenge, my characters haven't gotten any stronger since I fought Gloomtail. And if you recall in the last video, Gloomtail was the first boss in the whole game that caused me to game over, and now I have to deal with a boss that lasts 3 times as long. Super guards are pretty much mandatory on most turns because my star power recovery is slow, and taking healing turns with Mario leads to Bonetail not taking very much damage. Star power is not only my source of healing, but it also gives me a way to greatly increase my damage output if I'm able to save up enough for a power lift. Right at the start of the fight, I used a couple stylish attacks to get a tiny bit more star power and unleashed a power lift. And with this, I'm able to do a small chunk of Bonetail's health. Still though, missing this single breath attack super guard sets me way back, and I need to Sweet Treat as soon as I can to avoid losing my life shrooms this early in the fight. The extra spice that always makes Bonetail more interesting is that his bite attack can't be super guarded, which means that if I have a low health character in front, they're always at risk of dying even if I am ready with the B button. After that initial power lift, I'm basically relegated to spamming regular attacks with stylish timings to just barely sustain enough star power to heal off the missed super guards and bite attacks. These 16 Koopas in the audience aren't enough to award me the star power I need for a power lift, and honestly they fall short for Sweet Treats too. Over the next several turns, Bonetail slowly gains an advantage over me, cutting it closer and closer to me losing life shrooms. The bad part about having a Koopa audience is that every so often they'll hide away in their shells for a few turns, which means that I am truly and properly up creek without a paddle. When this happened for the first time, Bobbery got knocked down to 2 health and I had to swap him out to avoid wasting a life shroom that could save Mario instead. So I put in Vivian for her ability to set Bonetail on fire and deal chip damage to him consistently. I took another breath attack to the face, and then my audience finally woke back up, reconnecting my lifeline. Finally though, I got what I was looking for the entire fight so far. A bingo. And I got a star power bingo, no less. This would not only finally give me some much needed SP, but it would also fill my audience up and help me sustain my supply of SP. After that, I immediately laid down a Sweet Treat to get Mario and Vivian out of critical ranges. And now that I was out of star power poverty, I was also able to use Power Lift again and did just that so that I could make more progress on Bonetail's health. Most of my audience unfortunately hid away for a few turns again, but I was able to drop Bonetail below 100 health. I unfortunately missed a super guard on a breath attack and finally ate my first life stream of the fight with Mario. That meant I only had one more as a buffer between me and going all the way back to the beginning of the pit. Bonetail healed himself for 20, putting him back above 100, but then I knocked him down below 100 again, but then he healed himself again. I hit another bingo, this time for FP, which filled my audience all the way up and excited them, giving me extra star power regen. I used another power lift and went to work chipping Bonetail down even more. I landed a huge +4 on attack, which lets Vivian do 5 per punch, and Mario was able to do 16 with a spring jump. By the end of this power lift, I was able to get Bonetail below 80 health, which is solid progress. I saved up for another power lift, but had to sweet treat instead after Mario got bit. I kind of got stuck in a loop again where I couldn't quite get enough for a power lift, but with an audience of 50, I was actually able to pretty sustainably spam regular attacks and sweet treat as needed. I missed what would have been a fantastically helpful Shine Sprite bingo, and then I decided to swap Vivian out with Yoshi so that she didn't waste my last life shroom. I immediately whiffed an Icy Breath super guard, so I sweet treated again to heal Mario and Yoshi back up. Unfortunately though, I missed a single Yoshi health during the sweet treat, which let Bonetail pick him off with a bite and wasted my final life shroom. I went back over to Vivian before using a sweet treat again so she could be healed enough to make a final stand against Bonetail now that both of my characters were fully mortal. Bonetail used his stupid ass bite attack again, which put Vivian right back down to 1 health, and I decided to leave her there for a little bit to get some extra star power. The audience buff when a character is in peril is so powerful, and at this point I was pretty locked into my super guards, so I just had to get lucky enough for him to not use his bite attack. After a couple turns, I decided that I didn't want my hubris to once again rear its ugly head, so I healed her with a sweet treat. My audience apparently hates me, so they hid away in their shells again while I had just 1 sweet treat's worth of star power in reserve. I pressed on and kept working Bonetail down with regular attacks. I tried my best to keep Vivian out of bite range, but I also wanted to stall so my audience would eventually come back and I wouldn't be out of heals at a bad time. I healed Vivian, she got bit, and so I put my full health Mario in front to take damage for her this time. Bonetail used bite again, so Mario and Vivian were both in danger. My audience woke back up though, and I was able to get another sweet treat in. I kept up my rhythm of attacking whenever I could, super guarding every attack that was actually possible, and healing off the damage that I did manage to take. I knocked Bonetail down to just 5 health, and then to flex on what would momentarily be his corpse, I got a flower bingo. After that, I super guarded 1 final breath attack, he took a tick of fire damage, and Mario finished him off with 1 final Ultra Hammer attack to the foot. This was probably the most intense boss fight I've ever done in this game, and it required a huge amount of endurance, some luck, and a lot of good super guarding. It felt so good to beat this bastard using level 0 Mario, especially since this was my second attempt at Bonetail. On my first attempt at the level 0 pit, I made it all the way to Bonetail with just 1 life shroom left, and it wasn't enough. I played pretty well, but later in the fight when Bonetail had just 46 health left, I missed 1 super guard against a breath attack that put Mario to sleep, and then Bonetail promptly deleted Mario. But anyways, enough about my failures, let's get back to my successes. With all of that said and done, I took a good long look at the chest for return postage and decided to leave it right there. This was never about the destination, but instead it was always about the journey. Plus, I only have 3 badge power, so what would I even do with it anyways? And so, thank you guys so much for watching this video and supporting all of the content on this channel. All the comments, likes, and subscribers have helped grow the channel so much recently, and I am super thankful for it. And if you want to keep helping me make this growth happen and keep new videos coming out on this channel, then be sure you do all those interaction-y things on this video as well, because it lets the YouTube algorithm know that I'm doing a good job. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Take care.